Hey guys, so in this video I wanted to just answer a question that I get asked pretty frequently by clients and also by just general DMs I get throughout the week since I answer like hundreds of questions a day. But this is going to be basically on it doesn't matter what time that you train during the day, because a lot of people tend to get a little bit concerned about this, especially when they're taking their fitness more seriously and they're like, I want to make the most out of my training. So like, does it matter? Like, should I try to change my lifestyle for like, training for a certain time of day and whatnot? So there was a meta-analysis that came out by Jurgic et al. Titled "The Effects of Time of Day Specific Resistance Training on Adaptations in Skeletal Muscle Hypertrophy and Muscle Strength: A Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis." And this, they basically just took different cohorts and assigned them to like morning training, night training, and they measured it was a long-term study. So they basically measured like initially like what was better for strength and muscle growth and what was better after a period of time. So the following main conclusions were that one, at baseline, a significant difference in strength between morning and evening is evidenced with greater strength observed in the evening hour. Number two was resistance training in the morning hours may increase the strength assessed in the morning to similar levels assessed in the evening. So what that basically means is that as soon as you kind of like adapt to it, it doesn't really seem to matter too much. But if you're basically if you have like a competition, for example, in powerlifting, like you're going to be squatting in the morning, you might have a little bit more strength in the morning if you train in the morning and you're a little bit more adapted to that as you were if you were to train at night. Three is going to be training in the evening hours, however, maintains the general difference in strength across the day, with greater strength is observed in the evening hour. Four is going to be when comparing the effects between groups in the morning versus in the evening hours. Increases in strength are similar in both groups regardless of time of day at which strength assessment is conducted. So basically, in the long run, they found that essentially it didn't really matter with strength. So basically, their body adapted to what training time it was used to. And that five, muscle size, it doesn't really matter, like just train whenever. So the main takeaways I would have for this is that our body basically adapts to whatever we are going to be given. So most of the matters, number one, is adherence. So if we are going to be, the number one most important thing is that you're actually training, in order for adaptations to happen in muscle or strength. So whatever is most convenient for you, if it's your schedule, the best is what you should do. Now, in the short term, if you are a competitive powerlifter, you want to get the most out of your training, you're a very high level, maybe you bias training more later on in the day, towards those evening hours. But from what this study basically said is that, it was not statistically significant finding that greater strength levels were observed in the evening. Essentially, it was just basically that means that there's something called a p-value in statistics, and they found that it was not a statistically significant p-value. So it doesn't really matter in the long run of when you do train. So I'm just finishing up editing my video, and I want to just call on here, say one thing that I forgot to say is that training time does matter, in the sense that if you are not having a consistent training time, then you're going to have to expect some sort of performance shifts. And so that's when I would just recommend training with RPE and do your best. But if you do have it possible within your lifestyle, as long as you can have a consistent training time, doesn't really seem to matter for muscle growth or strength gains in the long term with your overall gains. To quote the authors, average morning strength gains were greater but not statistically significant, so when training in the morning and in the evening. So strength gains are probably slightly time day specific, but if you don't compete, this difference in strength development is probably trivial. And again, number one is just actually can you go in and train. And then in regards to muscle growth, it just doesn't really matter. Like there's no difference at all. So any sort of difference is mainly just observed with core body temperature, and whatnot. So what I would essentially just recommend is that whenever you train, just pick a time that it works best for your schedule. Be consistent with that. Your body's probably going to adapt. If you are going to be squatting in the morning, for example, at a powerlifting meet, it might make sense. I know that Sean Noriega actually did this for Raw Nationals, and unfortunately he got injured, but he actually switched his training time to be similar to that time of day so that, he wouldn't have a slightly lower performance because his body would be more used to training during that time. So I would just say find what time of day works best for you. Make sure that you are consistent with that. Your body will adapt. For example, I've had times where I was in school. My freshman year, I was training at like 6 a.m. every single day because that was the only time I had to do it. I just made it a priority. I still made strength gains. I still gained muscle just fine. I had some semesters I worked out in the afternoon, some semesters I worked out in the evening, and I made progress the entire time. And so, anything in the long run is probably going to wash out with as your body adapts to it. Number one thing, again, consistency. Stick to that training time. If you do have the flexibility in your schedule, try to train like when you feel best, like most energized. Like for me, because I am an online coach and I kind of have like my own like free schedule, I still my bias more towards training in the evening because that's when I feel best. And I do find that I have a slightly more of a nightness and eveningness with my like wanting to do things. So that's something that you can consider. But yeah, basically TL, DR, it doesn't really matter. Just be consistent with the time that you do train. You might notice some small differences training in terms of strength, but over time your body will adapt. Will adapt to whatever it's given. With muscle growth, it doesn't matter in that volume, and progressively increase that over time. So that's the deal. If you guys have any questions down below, please ask them.